Hey, Alicia Novin here, and I wanted to give 4 quick tips on how to let your code breathe. So, title slide. So what I mean by letting your code breathe is really about making your code a lot more approachable to someone who's never seen it before. So the code just feels a lot more light, it's more accessible. Someone can open up just about any file and work their way through the logic and understand and get a general sense of what it's trying to do, and you don't have to worry about having to walk them through the logic or having them pick apart anything that's densely compact and unnecessarily complex. So if you've ever used a product that has just been really easy to use and intuitive, you'll have noticed that the designer really intentionally used white space to their advantage. White space is great at helping the eye navigate to what is important and making everything else seem like it's a distraction so it doesn't bother you. And you want to take that same approach with your code. This is a pretty obvious set of steps, but it's important because a lot of people seem to miss this. So you want to be very intentional about where you put your line breaks. If you've got a really long condition, putting your line breaks and making it a multiple line statement helps out. You also want to be very careful about how many lines you put inside a given function or method. And you can actually introduce a code smell that way by having very long methods, so you want to be very careful about doing that. And when you're very good about using white space, it helps people approach your code, and it's a very important first step. So the second one I wanted to cover are single responsibility files. Hopefully you already know about your solid principles, but if you don't, you should definitely read up on those. And with solid, the S stands for the single responsibility principle. And it's this idea that your classes, your objects, they should really just do one thing and serve one function. Like you had one job. And with this principle, you can just take it beyond just objects. You can actually apply it to how you structure your files. So this is the idea that instead of putting all of your classes into one file, break them apart. And I'll be the first to say that I myself have put lots and lots of stuff into a single file because that's really helpful when you're in the zone and you're writing a lot of code really quickly, but you want to perform the cleanup work after that. You want to go and you want to break them into logical files so that it's easy to see where things are and you're not having to, scroll up and down to find things in some kind of weird chaotic way. So adding that kind of structure helps things out a lot. So with the first two things, you'll have noticed that the compiler doesn't really care about how much white space you have or how you structure your files. And I want to take it a step further by looking for other areas where the compiler really doesn't care about how you structure things, and so you should leverage that to structure things better for human readability. One great example is how you structure your folders. So think of an MVC pattern. Generally, you'll find that people take all of their models and they'll put inside a folder called models, and your views go inside a views folder, controllers inside a controllers folder. But that's not how we work. Generally, you're working against one view or maybe a couple of views, or one controller, not all the controllers inside your entire application. So think about a user. If you're working against a user object, you'll want to just see maybe the model as well as the controller and the user profile view all at once. So it makes sense to take all of those things and put it inside a folder called your users folder. And that lets anyone who's working against a new area of your code base or something different, they can easily find what they need to work against, and they don't have the clutter of all of these other things that they don't relate back to what they're doing. So the fourth thing is to just simply not show off with what you know and what you can do. Especially if you're using things like ternary operations or shorthanded syntax, those things can create some complexity when it's not needed. Now, shorthanded syntax is great when it's for explicit things and it's very obvious, but if you use it too much, especially around more complicated areas of your code base, you can actually hide a lot of the assumptions or edge cases that are part of that area. Especially when you're part of a team, you want to make sure that your code is approachable to everyone on that team. So regardless of whether the junior or the senior person is familiar with that syntax or not, you want to make sure that anyone can look at it and see the intentionality behind your code. And so for that reason, you want to make it very explicit about how it's getting used. And with shorthanded syntax, you can sometimes hide that. So I'm not saying don't use it, but I'm just saying be very careful about when you do and try to not overuse them. So that's it. I hope you found this helpful. If you agree with me or disagree with me, please let me know. I'm always happy to talk more about this, and I'm just going to give an awkward bye. Thanks a lot.